All right, everybody. As promised, we have Scott Ayres on the line, the social media expert. Like I did mention before, he's the lead consultant for Social Media Lab at AgoraPulse. So maybe to start this off, Scott, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chris. Yeah, my name is Scott Ayres. I'm in a little town called Waco, Texas. If you don't know where that's at, Google it. There's a lot of bad stories about Waco, never good stories. But yeah, so I run social media experiments for a company called AgoraPulse. My main job is kind of like this little character up here, a little science guy. You know, I run experiments that are scientifically based and report about different tactics and techniques that you can try to use for your business on social media, trying to bust a myth of what a lot of gurus tell people, because a lot of stuff that is out there in the social realm is opinions and not based on facts. So that's my main job, is just testing those sort of things. And I run our social media for AgoraPulse. AgoraPulse is a social media management platform for businesses. So if you've got either your own business, or you're an agency, or it's a large corporation, we help you schedule content, manage all that content. The big part is managing like comments and messages and just that moderation side, which is a challenge when you try to do it through their own platforms. And then a lot of reporting and other things as well, depending on how big you get. Our primary customer tends to be agencies and large corporations that use us. And we have I think about 3,000 paid users at this point. And we're a team around the globe, based out of Paris, France. There's about 45 of us that work remotely around the world.
Okay. And Social Media Lab is a branch of AgoraPulse?
Yeah, we basically have a room on the home of AgoraPulse. So we started we're right at a year. This week, actually, we hit a year and we finally started publishing. I've been with the company since January of 2017. Right. Just there, I was hired just to run this project. And so we've been publishing now for about a year.
And what were you doing before that? Like what led you to this position?
Man, I could go how far back you want me to go? Because I could go way back. Let's see. I'm 43 years old, and I've probably had about 30 jobs since I was 18. I'm a guy who's, you've heard of the jack of all trades. I'm kind of a Scott of all trades. Okay. You name it, I've probably done it, whether it was, doing sales at a Best Buy and a Circuit City electronics store. Okay, yeah. I did delivery. And delivered stuff for our electronic stores. I was a Maytag repairman, working on appliances and delivering that. And then I went to college in between there for business management. Ran a pizza joint for a couple of years, and then hopped into ministry. Actually, I was a youth minister and a sports and recreation minister, doing for some big churches in Houston. And got out of that. I sold cars, and then I got into a field. This is where it kind of led me to social media. I got into a field moving cars. I was an auto transport broker for a company in Houston, where basically we move cars for people who bought them on eBay or, auctions and that sort of stuff. Those are our main customer, or, people moving overseas, that sort of deal. And then one guy came to us, a guy named Gary Remy. I still remember Gary. And he's like, you got to get on LinkedIn. I'm like, what? At the time, the Facebook was still around. It was still the Facebook. It wasn't even a big thing. MySpace was still kind of hot. But he's like, yeah, get on LinkedIn. It's great for business. So I got on LinkedIn, fell in love with it, and found a lot of customers on LinkedIn. And then, so fast forward about a year and a half, 2 years later, I started my own company working from home. Yep. This was about 11 years ago. Started my own transport company. And so I leveraged social media big time for it. I got on Twitter, got on Facebook, because Facebook was hot at that point. And most of my clients I was getting not from all the paid leads that I had to pay for. I was getting from my connections on Twitter and on Facebook, and just reaching out to people, and got addicted to it. And so I started blogging. I never had blogged before in my life. Started blogging about social media. I was using this tool that created, I don't know how long you've been around Facebook business pages, but you used to be able to create these little custom tabs, we called them, where you could do like a website within Facebook pages. And this company called FanPage Engine had a cool tool that was really easy to use. And so I started training people how to use this tool, doing videos and blog posts and stuff. And I was their most active user by far. And the guy, David Foster, owned the company. He's like, dude, we write guest blogs for us. You know more about our app than we do. And so I said, yeah, sure, why not? And he paid me, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. I can get paid to write about stuff, And And I never thought about that in my life. And so about 2 months into that, the economy in the U.S. kind of collapsed, and gas prices were ridiculous, and I couldn't move any cars. And he happened to say, "Hey, you want to come work for me full time?" And so I went and started working for him full time. I did support, did blogs, and then from there I went to another company called Post Planner. Was there with them about 3 years. They're another social media app company. Probably wrote 1,500 blog articles for them. Got to co-author a book called Facebook All-in-One for Dummies. Have you seen any of the 4 Dummies books? I got to do that, which was really cool, and kind of got a name for myself in social media. And after about 3.5 years, I left that company. And then the owner, the CEO of Agora Pulse, Emmerich, I've known him for 7 or 8 years, and he tried to get me on board for a while. And he hit me up, and we got to talking. And I was like, yeah, I think this would be a good fit for me to come on and do the project. And kind of a year and a half later, almost 2 years later, it's running really well. And I love the company. I love the people. I've gotten to go to France here recently and meet everybody that works over in the France offices. So that's kind of the quick, 2-minute version of the last 20 years of my life there, but kind of where my journey took me.
Well, I found that really interesting, actually. So, because I think a lot of people listening can super relate to the fact that early, so it almost seems like since you were 18, you said you had so many jobs. So when you had these other jobs, did it feel right, or did you know in your heart that there was something else you wanted to do? Like, what was the transition?
For me, of course, when I was telling somebody yesterday, actually, when I got out of high school, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. I thought I wanted to be in medicine and all this stuff. I think mainly because I had really messy handwriting, and everybody said you should be a doctor. And I tried that. I took a couple of courses, and it was too much for me. I couldn't do the workload, and so I switched over to business. So I've always kind of had a business mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset. But I mean, as far as the changes, I'm the kind of guy that just rolls with the punches. Life's too short, life's too short to be miserable in a job. There's always something else out there. If you want to apply yourself, you can find something else. It's the people that don't apply themselves properly, I think, that get stuck or can't find something. So for me, I was always, while my wife may have been scared when I jumped ship, and not have something lined up, I knew immediately I could find something else. Most times, I think the longest period I ever went, where I was kind of unemployed was when the one company I worked for just went belly up. And, overnight, the first app company I mentioned went belly up, and I went about 3 months without anything. But I was like, okay, well, I can get hired somewhere. So I did odd jobs. I actually was a pest controller for a little bit, and so like, hey, I'm the kind of guy that'll just do whatever I got to do.
Right.
Especially, I'm married and got 3 kids, and so I'm going to provide regardless. And so I never was really worried about it. I'm not the kind of person who stresses or worries about those things. It's just, roll with the punches. Life goes on. This is the next step in the next, journey in my path. But for me, I mean, social media, I thought I was going to get away from it about 2 years ago. And then it kind of pulled me back in. And I really enjoy talking about it and doing it. It's one of those things I love, helping small businesses especially figure out social, because for them, it's really confusing because they don't have a staff. They don't have, a big team they're paying for. They're trying to figure it out on their own. And so I really love just helping people out, and I probably do more free help than anything. Probably should charge more people for some of it, but awesome. I figure the universe pays it back, and so I don't worry about it.
In your opinion, in terms of working in this industry, is it something that's growing, or is it shrinking, or do you find it just kind of maintaining itself?
It's changed a lot. I mean, if I go back probably 5 years ago per se, there was a lot of, what's the best way to put it without offending anybody? There was a lot of stay-at-home moms that became social media marketers.
Right.
It was a job you could do from home. You could go help a few businesses. You might get paid a little bit of money from it. And so we saw a huge shift where there was a lot of that for a while, and they weren't because they were just new hopping in. Social media marketing wasn't very sophisticated. Yeah. It was kind of looked down on by the upper level marketers. Were like, oh, the social media people, You can hire an intern in college to do that and pay him nothing. And so that's kind of where we were about 5 years ago. Now, I think within the last year and a half, it's changed a lot because, one, social media's gotten harder for businesses. And you've got to know, and I think we've all gotten smarter. We all expect us to look into data and be a lot more sophisticated. And on the flip side, people who do social media marketing for a living have learned that they've got to charge people what they're worth.
Yeah.
Because running social media for a business, even a small business, can be a massive time suck on you. I mean, one client may suck up 20 hours a week. You got to monetize that and get paid appropriately for it, as if you were working on staff. And so you can't just say, yeah, pay me $200 a month, I'll do your social. Well, you'll get eat up really, really quick if you were to do that now, because people expect more. So I think it's still growing. You look at a conference called Social Media Marketing World. I don't know if you've heard of that, through Social Media Examiner. I think they had 5,000 attendees at their conference last year.
Is that with, Michael Stelzner?
Yeah, it's the largest social media conference in the world, and that tells me that there's still people wanting to learn about social media, either for their own business or they're getting hired on at companies. But I do think you got to be more sophisticated than just, hey, I'm going to post some cat memes for you and you'll go viral or whatever. So it's a little bit different now for those who are taking it seriously anyway.
Yeah, I think a big part of it that, at least what I see, it's like the companies that are very witty about it, and it's like they're having a smarter approach where you want to engage with it. And one thing I see is a lot of companies, well, actually, they're not commenting back to people, which, is that a mistake?
Yeah, I think you got to engage with everybody who mentions you, everybody who comments, everybody who sends you a message. If you don't, because once you get in that phase, and a lot of really, really large corporations have a problem with that. They're not using typically the right platforms to do it. Once you get in that phase, I mean, you become that stale, boring old company that you look. I think of like a Budweiser, a giant beverage company. I know they get millions of comments per day, and that's an astronomical amount of stuff to reply to. I get that, but you lose that personal connection when you stop replying to it. And so you have to decide, is it worth it or not? I think for especially for the mid-level and smaller companies, you got to be personal. You got to use names. I like using first names there, because I do all of our social media. I try to use first names as much as I can when I reply, because it's like, oh, this company who I love and I follow just said, hi, Chris. And there's something to that with the psychology of it. And so, yeah, I think you've got to reply to everything. And you've also got to make sure you're squelching any negativity that's going on about your brand on your pages. Maybe someone's upset and they're mad. Sometimes, like we had somebody today on the last 24 hours on Twitter complaining about an issue they ran into with LinkedIn publishing. And it has nothing to do with us. It's something else they were doing, I think. But they were blaming us for it. And so I had to handle it and kind of make sure, for one, I gave them facts. But I listened to them. I didn't just hide it and move on, because it's public. I want everybody to, I want people to see that we're responding to it, even when we do screw up. And so we responded. We went back and forth a couple of times and finally resolved it. And they were like, yeah, you're right. Appreciate the replies. And it was all within, an hour or two after them tweeting. If I'd let that just sit, and that festers, it's the worst thing you can do.
It's almost like that bad comment now is a good thing, because if I don't know your company and I go and I look at it, I'm going to see like, wow, they actually took care of that really efficiently.
Yeah, and I don't think you should. Now, should you remove comments sometimes? Yeah, there's some comments people leave on Facebook, that are just, slander. They're cursing. They're being arrogant and rude and obnoxious. And you don't need that kind of stuff. But someone pushing back against whatever it is you're selling or doing, that's fine. As long as they remain civil, I don't see a problem.
So in terms of, because I think one thing a lot of people are doing now, or they're realizing maybe more than ever, is that even if you're not a business, you're still a personal brand, because everything's online now. So me just being an individual, I'm building a brand without even knowing it. When I go to apply for a job, they're looking at Facebook, they're looking at your Instagram, looking at this stuff. So in your opinion, and if you are, let's just say you are wanting to build a brand, say someone that has like this, a podcast, and they want to brand that, what is the best platform for that?
I think it depends on what your target is. If it's a B2B sort of situation, LinkedIn's the place to be. I mean, that's where you need to be at, because that's where the more professional corporations are talking. Their CEOs talking, the CFOs, that sort of stuff. If it's a B2C, you want to be on Facebook. Instagram is, to me, Instagram is so personal, more of like what's going on activity-wise. People don't want to see business stuff as much on there. But I think on all the platforms, you need to be. You mentioned building, brand and being smart. I just recently, I go on there every couple of months. I go to my Facebook profile because I allow people to follow me. Sometimes I regret that. Sometimes I don't. I think I've got about 10,000 followers on Facebook, and most of it through interest lists that used to be real hot. But I get weird comments sometimes on posts. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have posted that public. Maybe it's my political views. Maybe it's just a picture of my kids. I don't need everybody seeing those things. So Facebook has been real cool and smart lately on a personal profile. You can go back and limit all of your past posts. So if you were posting publicly and you go, I got to shut this down, you can go in and just make everything limited. When someone goes to your profile is not a friend, all they see is your face, maybe what company you work for, and that's it. So if you're in a job market, I think that's a real smart thing to do. Or if you're building a brand, you might go back and just remove posts or go and limit the audience on them and then start over. That way you don't actually, because I go back and look at some of my Facebook posts from 10 years ago and I'm like, oh man, what was I thinking? I don't agree with that anymore. I've grown up a little bit, and so employers or prospective customers are looking at that stuff though. And so if you're on Snapchat or Instagram and you're posting drunken tirades, your clients may not want to do business with you, and so you've got to be careful with that. And I don't have data behind that, which is what we talk about mainly at the lab. But I just, on a personal standpoint, if I look at there's some marketers that I follow in the social media niche that I cringe when I see their snaps or their Instagram stories. I'm like, golly, there's no way I would want to do anything with this guy, because I just don't agree with them out partying, doing stuff. That's them, that's their lifestyle, and that's cool. But as a business, I can't, align with that because I risk myself.
So do you think, as say you're operating a business or you're operating a personal brand, do you think it's important that you're authentic and you show this stuff, or should you hide it?
I think to an extent you should be human, yes, and that's why I think for me on Facebook, I used to friend everybody. I had 4,000 friends at one point because that's what you did. You friended everybody, and I went through and I removed about 3,500 of those friends, quote unquote, because I didn't know them. It's just people. I don't know you other than this right here and a couple of emails. No offense, I wouldn't friend you on Facebook because because we're not buddies. We're not hanging out. You don't want to get in my life. I don't want to get in yours. But and there's some. So you have to kind of. I think for Facebook especially, you want to keep your friend. I like keeping Facebook very personal. It's I'm posting pictures of my kids, my life. What's going on locally, and then I'll post some brand stuff here and there publicly. And kind of keep that public persona there because people can follow me if they want to follow me, and that's where that relationship stays. And I follow a lot of people too, like Michael Stelzner, for example. We're not friends on Facebook, but we follow each other and we send each other messages. But we're not necessarily involved with each other's life when it comes to our kids and those kind of things. We're involved professionally, and so I think it's okay to put some of that out there, but you do have that risk of, either losing a client because you said something that's just like, ooh, you think of some of the celebrities who've said things like Roseanne's a good example. She's in the media a lot here because the new show's coming back out. But, she said something really stupid on Twitter, apologized for it, yes, and realizes she made a mistake. But she lost her job and caused a lot of people a lot of misery and lost their jobs for a little while because of one little tweet that she probably said when she was, high in the clouds off a substance or something. And so you got to be careful with that sort of thing, I think.
So kind of moving on into, moving back to the Facebook business pages. So what's a good way to kind of drum up engagement on those?
Well, what we're finding right now and looking through stuff that we've done, some of the tests that we run, the first one is if you're trying to get engagement organically speaking, photos and videos are still outperforming any other post type when it comes to the reach and the engagement. Links are still great, and you should post links because that's how you drive traffic to your website, obviously. But people on Facebook don't tend to stop and leave comments and have a discussion on a typical link post on a business. Now, if you're a news page, that's a whole different story because that's what you're all about is the stories. But for Agorapulse, for example, we post links to our blogs and product and things, but there's not a lot of engagement on it. People click, they do their thing they look at the link, they read it, they go back to whatever they were doing on Facebook, which sometimes they come back to Facebook, it's already moved enough and they don't even see it anymore. Right. So I think there's for photos, I have a local business, and it's a bounce house business, renting like water slides and bounce houses and stuff. And what works on there is the personal connection and showing kids showing smiling faces, showing those photos that showcase my product, but not in a salesy way. Just more of here's what my product solves. Here's the benefits you get from it. And so I think that if you can do that sort of stuff as a brand and figure out what that looks like for you, that's ultimately the point. So photos and videos and live videos are. Facebook has plunked in so much money in live videos, and I think they're going to keep doing more and more because the engagement on them is phenomenal. Like, for example, I'll give you a real-world example. A buddy of mine owns a pizza joint, and he's not really good at social media. He doesn't even have a website. And so he has a Facebook page with about 2,500 likes on it in a town of about 7,000 people, so it's not bad. And he created this pizza called the Colossal. I think it's or Colossus. It's 28 inches around. I mean, it's massive pizza. 7 pounds is how much this thing weighs. And so he's like, man, I want to do a challenge and see if anybody can eat it. And if they can eat it in an hour, I'll give them a T-shirt, put their name on the wall, and they'll get the pizza for free. It's about a $60 pizza. And so he started talking about it on Facebook and posting it and stuff. And he got a guy that said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so I'm like, Gerald, you got to go on Facebook Live, man. He's like, I don't even know what that is. I don't know how to do it. So I'm messaging him literally like 5 minutes before he was supposed to start this thing. I'm like, because he was trying to get people to come up to the restaurant and watch it. I'm like, you're going to get 5 people. It's 8 o'clock at night. Parents are putting kids to bed, that sort of thing. And so I said, you got to go live on Facebook. And so I showed him how to do it real fast. He hops on live. He's showing it, holding his phone. It's wobbly. It's awkward. He's talking weird. This thing for the first 15 minutes, 20, 30 people are watching, 50 people are watching, 100 people are watching. Oh, wow. It hits about the 30-minute mark, and there was about I want to say that peaked at the most of about 2,500 people watching live at one time. And they were from all around the globe. I mean, there's people in Africa and France and England, all across the U.S. watching this little pizza joint in the middle of nowhere, Texas, to have this pizza eating contest. And it ended up that video got viewed, I think last time I looked, I have access to his insights, it was about 11,000 times it got viewed. He'd never gone live before. The guy didn't eat the pizza. He only got about halfway through. He actually at the 58-minute mark, he said, I'm out, and ran off camera and threw up, which was kind of funny.
Oh, good.
Luckily, he didn't get it on camera. His battery died right after that, which is really funny. But the cool thing that happened from that is, for one, his posts since then have had a lot higher reach. Yeah. He got a ton of new likes. At least 3 or 4 dozen new likes came over to the page. But then the local news media happened to see it, the local TV stations, and they're like, hey, can we come out and do a live broadcast and let our anchorman try to eat the pizza in an hour during the morning show? And so they came out, broadcast live from his pizza place for an hour, and he got all this free publicity, all just from hitting the dang button and going live and taking a risk. And now it's paid off. I don't know how many times he's sold that pizza now. I mean, I would say he's, it's only been about a month or two. I mean, he sells 10, 15 of them a week now. And it's changed his business, because it's an expensive pizza, and so he has a good profit built into it. And now he's had, I think, 6 guys try to eat it. Nobody's succeeded yet. And he goes live every time. They don't always get as many views as that first one did. But it just goes to show me that there's power in that for any business, even if you don't know what the heck anything is to do with marketing, that you can go live, you can kind of show people stuff they're not used to seeing. Yeah. Maybe you're, for a podcaster, showing them how you record your podcast. Exactly. Showing them why, like you and I are on video right now. Someone might be listening to this, they may not watch the video. Yeah. Exactly. It's something different. And we're looking around. We're we're not always 100% like trying to perform, but people want to. There's a voyeurism factor in social media in our society, and people love that stuff. Yeah. And so I think for businesses, big or small, video is still hot. Live video, is, I think, better, because you get that personal touch. Recorded video needs to be very short and catchy, and you got a couple of seconds to grab their attention. Yeah. I did a study that was seeing how many people turned on sound on videos, and it was only like, and I had to go look. It's like it was maybe 15 to 20% of people were ever turning sound on videos, because they're just watching it on their phone in their stream. They see it for a second, they pause and go, nope, and go to something else. So you got to catch their attention on those recorded videos and give them a reason to click on it and turn the sound on.
I mean, even myself, I only turn the sound on if it's really good. So I think
Oh yeah.
Subtitles are super important.
Big time. We're actually testing that right now. We've ran. God, we're doing it on ads. We're testing subtitles on video ads. With and without. And the interesting, we've probably spent about $3,000 or $4,000 already testing that. Different versions and different ways to show it. Most of the time, subtitles do better, but oddly enough, every once in a while, one of the ones without subtitles crushes it, and we don't know why. It's just weird. Like, we want really good data because we got close. We did a study, and I think we spent about on that one about $2,000 on these ads, $1,000 with subtitles, $1,000 without. It got to the end. And we do something called a statistical significance calculator, which is a really long, boring formula to prove conversions are significant, with A versus B. And we want 95%, which is a really, really high number, 95% certainty. And we got 92.7. It was like right there. And so we're like, and so we're like, let's not publish it yet. Let's run the test a little bit longer and see if we can push that number up, or it may push it down. And we go, okay, we just got to report this instead. But it's so close. But yeah, I think subtitles are key on recorded videos. Subtitles and anything flashy in the beginning to catch attention. I was even thinking about, even on podcasts. I was on a podcast the other day, and he even said, dang, my intro is way too long. His intro was like 30, 35 seconds. And he's like, people have learned in this. Yeah, you made the face. Yeah, and people have learned, like in Stitcher or podcast snaps, they can click the skip 30, fast forward 30 seconds. They don't even listen to it.
Exactly.
So it's like, just get to the dang point. So you only got a couple of seconds to kind of get into it. And I think that's part of our society now. We're, instant gratification. Yep. And so you've got to get to the point in your videos and your audio really, really fast.
Is Twitter making a comeback?
I don't know. It's still there. I think the stuff Twitter's doing lately is smart. Yeah. We're testing lots of different things on Twitter, like how many emojis in a post get better impressions, how many hashtags, that sort of stuff. But Twitter itself is finally starting to clamp down on a lot of the garbage. Getting rid of the fake profiles. Apps like ours that schedule content can no longer repeat content. Because what was happening there, and the reason they did that was a lot of bots and fake account people would go out and create thousands of fake Twitter profiles, and then schedule the same content to it over and over again, sometimes in the same day, every hour, using the same update, same hashtag, and we're making that hashtag trend, and it was a false trend. And so you would, if you got 10,000 Twitter accounts tweeting a post with a hashtag 20 times in a day, that 200,000 tweets, boom, that's going to show up in trending. So you and I will be like, oh, what is this? Yeah. And we're going to think it's true. We're going to think it's a really hot subject. So we start talking about it. And a lot of it was fake. And so Twitter's realized that. I think they've known about it for years. They've just been lazy. And now they're going, okay, we better do something about it. So now they've made apps like ours not be able to repeat content anymore, which sucks a little bit on the marketing side, because I like to repeat my content every month or 2 weeks, something like that. It's good evergreen content, but it does make the platform a little more honest now. So now you've got to make sure what you're posting. You got to constantly go, even if you do schedule content, which is a business I recommend, because otherwise you forget to post, or you post 20 things one day and then nothing for 2 weeks. And so it's a good change for Twitter to do it. It's just a little rough on the beginning for a lot of marketers, but it's going to end all that trending stuff. That happened a lot during the elections, in the U.S. especially. A lot of stories were getting trending, and they weren't actually trending. It was all these fake accounts talking about it. So I think Twitter can make a comeback. The 280 character change is a nice change. So you can post a little bit more, but I think they're now, because Facebook kind of became everybody's news aggregator. I know for me it did. But now Facebook is pulling away from that because it caused so much friction. I think people are going back to Twitter for news and not on Facebook as much. So I think they can lure people back, but they've got to figure out a way to make the feed easier to follow and keep doing the work to get rid of and dump these fake accounts, because there's millions of them out there. A lot of celebrities have some very inflated follower accounts. Yes. I forget the one recently. One of the big Kardashians, I think, lost, 500,000 followers in one day because they were fake. You know, they'd paid a PR company. PR company got them followers, but they were fake. So a lot of influencers who are out there getting paid because they have these massive following didn't really have a massive following. They were all, you know, fake accounts. And so, and Twitter didn't do anything about it for years. And, you know, because they were greedy, I think. Yeah. So now they've got to gain trust back from everybody. But I think they could do it. It's just, I don't know. They're not visual enough, I think, for everybody today. We're so visual now with Snapchat and Instagram stories, especially. I think social media in general is moving to that story format. Yep. It's quick content that's gone and expired within 24 hours, especially on your personal life sort of stuff. I think that's what most people are leaning towards. I don't know. We'll see what Twitter can do with it. I think if they do a better job of integrating live video right into Twitter, I think besides, you know, they still have Periscope, but if they do a little bit like Facebook's doing, I think people will hop on there more.
Yeah, I think the stories ideas is very clutch, but also I don't think a lot of people, like my friend recently got on Twitter because I don't know what this is, like what do I do? It's a hard thing to, like, because you go on Instagram and it's very easy because obviously you're looking at pictures and movies, and for him the way I describe it is it's live TV. You don't see anything again, so just go follow people you like and it's like live TV. But it's also a super good way to engage with celebrities or people you're attracted to, not in like a weird way, but just you like their stuff. But
yeah, for me, I mean, I remember the one day I realized social media could be massive. It was, gosh, this has to be 10 years ago. I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan, being, you know, from Texas, and Troy. I was in the glory days when we won all our Super Bowls, and Troy Aikman was the quarterback, and you know he was in the broadcast booth, you know, after he retired, and he was one morning he'd posted something on Twitter, and it was a picture of the stadium where the Green Bay Packers play, and he was about to do he's about to announce his first game at Lambeau Field, and where he had played many times in the playoffs and had, you know, triumphs and defeats, and he posted, you know, a tweet, the calm before the storm. This is so weird, you know, because he was so used to being on the field, and I replied back, you know, what does it feel like to be on the opposite side of things now? He actually replied to my tweet, and I'm like, holy crap, you know. That's granted, amazing. Troy Aikman's just a regular dude like you and me who just happened to have a job that put him in the limelight. Yeah. But I was like, okay, that gives this everyday Joe guy like me an opportunity to talk to somebody like that, you know, and that really showed me the power of social media, where you and I can connect with people that we would never see on the streets, we could never get in their offices, but we can, if we do it the right way, you can get the attention of celebrities and influencers. It's harder now than it was 10 years ago, but it's still there. I mean, every time I've gotten tweeted by somebody who I looked up to, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened. Yeah. You know, and I still get excited about it. Even today, it's exciting when somebody, you know, it's like Michael Stelzner or Amari Smith in the social media world retweets something or mentions you. You're like, whoa, this is so cool. This person with 500,000 followers is tweeting me. And so that's still where the power is at. Because if you can be, we talked earlier, kind of my little journey, go back to your personal journey here, you know, there's so much power in just being a good person and, you know, giving back, and that stuff will come back to you eventually if you've been legitimate and people see that. Exactly. If you've been a jerk, spammy marketer, everybody's going to see that too, and they're going to forget about you, and they don't want to have anything to do with you. So you got to be careful of how you do things.
I think that's a good point you bring up, because I follow like Gary Vaynerchuk online, and one thing he says that resonates with me is the internet and the social media isn't changing us; it's just exposing us. So if you're a jerk, you're going to be seen as a jerk. But if you're just a good dude, you're just trying to reflect that.
Oh yeah, there's a book called Trust Agents, written by Chris Brogan, and I always forget his co-author. Sorry, co-author guy. What was funny is I got to know Chris back when Google Plus launched. I didn't even know Chris before that. Yeah, right. Yeah. Some people, like, what? It was hot for a while there. But Chris, he wrote this book called Trust Agents. It's about being that sort of connector person, that guy that just is helping people to help people and not expecting anything in return. And I've done that all my life and benefited from it, but without trying to benefit from it. I'm just, somebody needs something, I'm going to help them out. A buddy needs a car, here, I got a car, you want it? Yeah. Or, hey, I know somebody who's hiring for this position, and I know Johnny who does that. And so, and I read his book one day. I'm like, dude, I think you wrote about me, and it's so true. So if you hadn't read Trust Agents, it's such a great book to go read, because it really exposes that sort of mindset of just, being positive, not looking out to try to make money with every personal transaction. Now, don't look at everybody as a dollar sign, but connect with people, and it might take 10 years for that connection to pay off. I mean, it might, but eventually it will pay off, and other people will see how you were treated and how you treated them. And I think that's really, really important.
And do you have that same mindset? Let's just say you want to grow your accounts. Is that the mindset to have?
I think so. I mean, I think for us, on social media, you should be sharing other people's content. Don't just be posting your own stuff all the time. I mean, people have different rules. I don't go by any of the rules because I think there's no data on them. And so, you used to hear the 80-20 rule, share 80% other people's, 20% yours. I don't know if it still works or not, but I think it's good to share other people's content on social, because it just shows, because if you're not willing to share other people's content, why should you expect anybody else to share yours? Yeah. And so you've kind of got to have that same sort of give and take sort of mindset on social. You got to comment on stuff and be genuine about it, because again, why would anybody comment on your stuff if you're never commenting on anybody else's stuff? And so and so there's benefits to, again, just being a real genuine person out there that's active, tagging people the right way in social media. I like to mention people as much as I can when they've posted maybe a new product came out or something cool happened to them, or and not it's not affiliate links. There's no dollar signs coming back to it. It's just, hey, this is somebody I really like. I like what they're doing. Y'all should check them out. And then hopefully they do the same for me when I post something or publish a new article or whatever.
Yeah. But it's okay if they don't, though, because.
Well, yeah, for sure. No.
So one thing I always kind of get from guests here is maybe like, what are kind of your 3 kind of keys to life or success? Like, what are the things that you feel are very true? Maybe we touched on them already, but like, some last piece of advice you would give to people that are just, maybe they're growing social, but maybe not even social, just maybe they're in a place where they're 25, they're unsure about themselves. Like, what did you do well in the past that you would want to give back?
I've kind of always had the mindset of failing forward. So, if you're not trying new things, you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, you might fail. You may bomb at it. You may be horrible at that job or whatever it is, but at least you tried. Because the worst thing you can do is, and I've got friends in this situation. I've been out of high school 25 years, so I've got guys I know guys who've been at jobs for 25 years. They hated the last 20 years, but they've done it because it was a steady paycheck. It was what everybody expected of them, but they absolutely hated it. Yeah, they're going to get retirement soon, that sort of deal, but they didn't take any risk. And so I don't want to look back on life and say I didn't try. I didn't go. I don't want to go, man, what if? So I'm not a what if. Like, I'm wearing a shirt that says it is what it is. So which is really appropriate for what you're asking. Life is what it is. You got to take those risks. I don't want to live with any what ifs, and so that's probably a big one for me. And I think another one for me, I'm a guy of faith, and so my faith plays a very, very important role in everything I do. So if you're a person of faith, great. And make that be your influence, whether it's personal or professionally, and I'll make sure it aligns for you. And then I think you got to, in a social media business world, if you're 25 and you're like, man, I want to meet Gary Vaynerchuk, figure out how to do that. He would love it to see how somebody did. Maybe it's video. Maybe it's you're mentioning him on Snapchat and Instagram all the time. Maybe it's you're writing articles about him, or you're bringing in guests on a podcast like this that know him and can connect to him. And so find those connectors and kind of go after them, but be genuine. But find people who might be able to connect you to that if that's your goal. But he gets approached by so many people, I'm sure he shuts them down pretty quick. But whoever that is or whatever that thing is, there's people out there who know. The world is so. You used to talk about, was it the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever? Yeah. Now it's like 2. There's you're only 1 or 2 people away from connecting to anybody in the world now. Like, I go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn I've been on forever. I got like 5,000 connections on there, and I'll look at it. I'm like, God, I can't believe I'm connected to all these different CEOs and these people, because they're connected to somebody, and it's so fast. I can send them a message, and they're like, oh yeah, sure. Like, I'm being guest on a lot of podcasts right now. There's some really big ones that I'm like, there's no way in the world they'll let me be on. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard you on such and such podcast. I'll listen to it. Yeah, you can be on my show." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And so that sort of stuff just happens because of social media and the way it is.
And I guess kind of getting to the end, one thing I'm kind of curious about: are there any smaller social apps you're aware of that are kind of rising up we should pay attention to?
I'm probably not. I'm probably the wrong person to ask on that because I stick to the big ones. I mean, I don't see any. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, I think Anchor FM is pretty interesting right now, where people are doing like live podcasting and stuff and recording on there. I think that's I think podcasting in general is still. It's so untapped. We thought it was, we thought it had died for a while, and we thought we've hit the pinnacle of it. But I think podcasting has become so easy for people now. So there's so many apps out there to help you do podcasting, whether it's Anchor, Spreaker. I love Spreaker. I don't know if you ever use Spreaker. Fun little app that you can record with on your phone, on the desktop. It can mix stuff for you, and you can listen to all kinds of cool stuff. So I think the podcasting stuff is where there's a lot of opportunity for people that people are missing. Yeah. But you got to carve a niche, whatever that niche is. I've tried to be the broad social media thing on some podcasts, and it doesn't work really well. But being niched down like our social media lab is very niched down at the sciencey sort of experiments. It's different than the big broad stuff. So we got a smaller audience, but they're a loyal, good audience. And so I think that's the key with that sort of stuff.
And final thing here that I'm kind of curious about, because you are doing science and social media, which is a very interesting concept. I love that. So, like, what's the most surprising thing you've found so far?
There's so many of them. Probably one that might be relevant to you guys is Instagram. There's a lot of the quote unquote gurus who teach people to stuff all the hashtags into the comments on a post, because it looks ugly or it's too much in the post itself. Because you can use 30 hashtags on Instagram. That's the max they allow you. And so I said, well, I've heard people say this for years, stuff in the comments. So we tested it recently, and it didn't come out that way for us. I think our impressions, our views, reach, whatever you want to call it on Instagram, was about 25% higher when I left the hashtags in the original post and didn't try to stick them in the comments and hide them in the comments. Because what's happened is Instagram has figured out that, smart, crafty marketers are trying to game the algorithms. And so they made it now where they kind of punish you when you put it in their comments. They're not ranking that as high in the Explore feed. And so now that's not a true thing anymore that people have been saying and teaching for years. And so that was some people who I love and adore teach that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to publish it anyway. But it was one of those findings that we tested, and it was a shocker to us because we thought it would be the other way. So if you're on Instagram, put your hashtags in the original post. There's no reason to stuff in the comments. You're not going to go back to the top of the Explore feed when you do. You used to do, like if you would wait like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, put your hashtag in the comments, you'd pop back up at the top of the Explore feed. That doesn't happen anymore. It's based on when you put the hashtag in the post. When the post was published is what the Explore feed is based on. And so you want to get in there fast.
I guess we're on Instagram for a minute here. It's kind of tickles my fancy because I love Instagram. I think it's a really great place for my age group.
Yeah.
Should we be paying attention to IGTV?
Man, I don't know. It's interesting. I think all I'm seeing a lot on IGTV right now is a lot of repurposed content that are on other platforms. Yeah. So it hasn't excited me yet. I mean, there are a few I've kind of looked at and go, it's not too bad. But most of the time, all I'm seeing, at least in the social media space, is people taking the videos they were doing on YouTube or Facebook and just sticking them on IGTV. But if you're the same audience, it's kind of boring. So I think it's interesting because what it does for you, and it's that complete. We've gone back to the vertical video now, which for years everybody's like, turn your phone sideways, because you put them on YouTube and they'd have the bars and stuff on it. But I think this could hurt YouTube more than anything. It's not going to hurt Facebook, but I think it'll hurt YouTube because people are already on Instagram. They're already being social there, especially the millennial generation and the generation behind them. So it takes up the whole screen, which I love because it's kind of distraction free in a sense. So I don't know. We're trying to figure out how to test it for us to see if it's worth the time or not. Will people watch them. The cool thing that I like about it, regardless of how many followers you have on Instagram, in your stories you can link back to an IGTV episode, and you get the swipe up ability. So right now on Instagram, you have to have at least 10,000 followers before you can swipe up in stories, unless you want to pay for an ad. Now, if it doesn't matter how many followers you got, if you got an IG episode, you can link to it in your story, and people can swipe up and go to that IGTV story. So that's a pretty cool feature. I think people haven't played with enough yet. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think it's one of those things a year from now. It's like Facebook Watch. You know, are people watching stuff on Facebook? I don't know. I know I don't. But they're trying to be the Netflix of social media. So I think creators it'll be up to the creators that are out there. Do they produce enough good content that keeps people's attention?
That's what it comes down to.
I don't want to stare at my phone for 30 minutes and watch an episode on IGT. My phone's going to ring. I'm going to get a text message, and I'm not going to go back to it. So I think it's got to be short, 5-10 minutes and move on.
One of the things I find strange about it, not strange, but I guess it's just like something that we're going to have to work around, is a lot of stuff we film is horizontal for YouTube, and then you actually have to film it again.
Unless you just I've seen some people there's an app called wave.video. You can create Instagram stories for you. You can't do IGTV yet, but they have a way to create smaller videos. So I guess as long as your most important part's in the center of your camera, you might be able to squeeze it in, but you just lose all that side stuff. But
what can you do?
But again, I think having content that's specific for each platform is better anyway.
Fair. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that is preached very heavily, because the mindset is different on every platform.
Oh yeah, sure, for sure.
But anyway, we're just about out of time here, so I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I think we had a really good conversation, a lot of value out of that. Is there anything, last thing you'd want to tell the audience?
Just if you want to check out the Social Media Lab, just look up Social Media Lab on any of the podcasting apps. You can go to agorapulse.com if you want to try out the app. We have a free trial for Agorapulse, so if you want to try it out for 14 days, check it out. And you can read our blogs. We have 2 different blogs, the Social Media Lab and our regular blog on there. You can check out. And we're just Agorapulse everywhere on social media.
And one thing I'll ask from you is if you could put those links in our Skype conversation and that book you recommended. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Have a good one, Scott. Yeah. Another month, thanks to death. Ooh, another month, thanks to death.